The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is the movie up for discussion this week.
First one that neither of us have seen.
Yeah, the first brand new property. Everything else either... I think everything else either you had seen it or both of us had seen it.
I believe so, yeah.
It was a good, very outside of our regular genre. You know, we were kind of swinging, playing in a different sport here.
Yeah, so like Spider-Verse last week, we did some comedy in there.
Mhm.
We had some good Boston twangs. This one was heavy,
Yeah,
not going to lie.
very, very emotional.
Yeah.
Very hard to watch, I guess I'd say.
Definitely some scenes were for sure hard to watch and very emotional, like you said. A lot of deep emotional kind of bonds between characters being built, I guess you could say. I don't know if we saw the full kind of scope necessarily, but we got flavors of relationships between people, but we were more interested in the mystery of it all as opposed to the characters within it, I guess.
Yeah, I think the story, like a lot of the movies we've taken a look at so far, it's the characters kind of drive the story, but in this case, I think it was the opposite. The story, the mystery kind of drives the characters, and
yeah, we pick up at a certain point in these characters' lives, and we're just kind of thrown into the mix and not privy to a lot of information.
Yeah, we don't really get any backstory on them. There's no, like, you know, this was their childhood, this is how they grew up, this is why they are who they are. It's just, this is who they are now. Go with it.
I wonder if that's in any part due to the fact that it was a book beforehand. Like maybe they're expecting that viewers are coming in with some knowledge of the characters before, and it's just kind of like, go for it, like see it done in a visual manner now, as opposed to like introducing a new audience.
Yeah, like the movie was made more for people who have already read the book, not to expose them to like Harry Potter. The movies were made in more of a way that would expose people to the books if you watch the movies.
Yeah,
but I think what you're saying with this is it's more caters to the people who've already read the book. And if you're interested to watch the movie, or if you've already seen it, you should also read the book.
Yeah. I think you've taken what I've said and interpreted it correctly. Yeah,
I think I'd agree with that. I mean, not to, especially after watching it, I'm not sure I would read the book. I mean, I'm sure it's just as heavy, if not more so, than
exactly,
this one.
Because it's more detailed, I would assume.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm just not sure it's my
put yourself in that kind of mindset. Yeah, it's
exactly.
Tough to willingly do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think I'd necessarily explore the book either, but I'm happy that we did take. I mean, despite it being heavy and emotional and a little hard to watch sometimes, I think we got a different spice of a movie that we haven't really seen before, at least to this point in our podcast series here. But also, like more generally,
it's a bit of a perspective shifter.
Mm-hmm.
From what we've seen, it's just like a totally different.
Yeah, not that we haven't seen like violent behavior and other things that we've watched, but this was much more visceral.
Yeah,
just realistic,
inhumane, and maybe realistic. Yeah, which is maybe that's what's dark about
sadistic,
visceral, and inhumane is
Yeah, just knowing that it's something
thing
that could play out. You could see that playing out in real life type of thing. There's people out there that are as despicable as Martin
and the therapist there. What was his name? Or not the therapist, but the social
Nils,
worker.
I think.
Nils, yeah, that's right.
Oh, Lisbeth's social worker. Yeah, he was a piece of shit.
Yeah,
there was a lot of exploring the dark side of humanity, but that dark side definitely being masked by normalcies, I guess you could say. But back to like the characters themselves, I felt like I needed a bit more to chew on, especially Mikhael's character, Daniel Craig. I just needed to know a bit more about his character. Like there was clues to what he was dealing with and why he was so motivated to help solve this mystery of the Vanger niece that had gone missing all those years ago. But I still didn't really quite grasp what lured him into that so heavily and why he was so determined to see that through. And kind of I had some questions about what was going on in his personal life and stuff. Was he involved in some legal troubles? Something like that?
Yeah. It must have been, right? Like there had to be
or he was he was in a court battle with
there must have been
someone?
A lawsuit or something based on,
because he was the editor of a newspaper, I believe.
Yeah.
Or a magazine or something.
Yeah, because it was what was the other guy's name? Hans, right?
Piece.
Was the guy who he was in conflict with? Is that his name?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Hans.
Yeah, like there must have been...
That's who Christopher Plummer's character offers him information on if he completes his investigation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he must have... there must have been something published in that paper or magazine or whatever it was, that some defamation or something like that. Because Christopher Plummer said he was right, he just couldn't prove it, right? In that conversation, he's like, you were right about everything, you just couldn't prove it.
Yeah.
So there must have been some kind of lawsuit for defamation, but ultimately, Mikhael Daniel Craig knew he was correct. So the lawsuit was it was horseshit. He knew it was horseshit because he was right, but he couldn't prove.
Right.
It didn't matter in a court of law.
Yeah, I guess that's good. But again, it's like we're left to speculate a little bit there
on what it was.
And I don't know if there's more context in the book too in that regard. Maybe that was cut from the movie too, and tests of it or something. It ran a little long and they had to cut somewhere.
I mean, yeah, it was. What was it, 240 or something? 239 was the runtime.
It was a longer one, especially for. I mean, probably in today's age, probably not so long in 2025. Movies run pretty long these days, but when was this made?
2011, yeah.
2011.
I feel
that
was more towards the hour 45, maybe 2 hours would be long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be pushing it.
It didn't feel long. Ultimately, despite it was heavy and there was a lot to grasp, it didn't feel like the story dragged. Sorry, maybe I shouldn't say it didn't feel long. It didn't feel poorly paced. It maybe was a bit long.
I felt like there was there was something weird going on, and there felt like a big chunk of the movie was just sort of this montage of detective work and just kind of going from scene to scene. I don't know. There was something about the pacing that actually threw me off a little bit, I will say.
Just too much transition or something? Because that's what I thought it was used for. Those kind of detective work montages were just to transition from a little bit of time has passed. We're getting kind of from scene to scene, setting to setting here.
Yeah, I guess I just maybe there was too much of that or something, and I kind of started to lose because it was a lot of just innocuous conversation about the investigation to sort of get you through that montage without having too many longer scenes that give you deeper exposure on characters. So yeah, I maybe just got a little lost in the sauce there for a sec.
That's fair. We all get a little lost in the sauce from time to time.
So yeah, I feel like it could have been, in my eyes, I feel like it could have been truncated a little bit there.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I can see that, and maybe that's kind of a consequence of it being based on the book. Maybe we had to jump through time so many times, we had to have so many of those montages because so much had to be cut for time, and you needed that. The understanding that time had passed was more important than the cinematic, not having to cut through so much.
Yeah.
Maybe that just the content superseded the ability to shoot it in the way that was best.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Well, what did you think of his investigative approach, I guess, speaking of that?
It's very passive. I was surprised that he wasn't asking more probing questions and being more aggressive with people to get the answers he was looking for. He was much more of a passive, just have conversations with people and in retrospect look at what he gained from that.
Well, I wonder if that was deliberate because the conversation he has with Christopher Plummer's character, I forget what his name is.
Henrik
Vanger.
Yeah.
He basically reveals to him, that a lot of his family are very guarded individuals. Yeah, putting it lightly, I guess. Yeah, there's not a lot of like cross communication between them, and you're not going to get a lot of information out of them, especially like a stranger coming in there. It seemed like.
Sure.
So maybe that was deliberate of him to sort of like take a much more like observational, like kind of tiptoe around, pry lightly kind of thing. Don't push people too much and just see what bits of information you can kind of tease out while maybe relying a bit more on Lisbeth's gathering of information in the methods she uses. So yeah, I think that helped, like having that dualistic approach, like having him be much more like, I'm going to get close to the family here and see what I can find out. And Lisbeth obviously much more like from a distance.
Tells them what they're lying about, basically.
Yeah. Come to me for the real story.
Yeah, that was certainly a good... I thought they worked very well together. Like, their professional relationship was very good. I did think it was strange that it became sexual. Like, I thought it was a little forced. Didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see any reason for that at all.
Was it a product of its time type of thing where like every movie there needs to be like a love interest between the two?
Maybe.
Because he is happily ending up with his wife anyways at the end, right? But yeah, that did seem just kind of awkward to me. Like I didn't think there was romantic feelings between them.
No, there was much
more of a platonic
chemistry, and it didn't.
Professional.
That's the thing. Like I could understand it if it was like, the actors unfortunately didn't have as much chemistry as would have been good for a movie like this, but from a story perspective, I didn't think it really added anything. Like, and maybe it's another thing that like maybe it's more important in the books and it's a bit bigger in the books, but as it's done in the movie, it's just completely out of place. Yeah.
I mean, thinking about it more though, sort of speaks, maybe it's more about Lisbeth as a character too, like that being the only healthy relationship with a man likely that she's experienced, so that being like a stepping off point for her to put her guard down a little bit, become a little more vulnerable, and grow as a human being, sort of get over past traumas. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, not get over, but just try and cope with past traumas. So yeah, I think maybe in that sense I'm happy that it was there for the sake of her character.
Sure.
But it did feel a little forced as a viewer to watch because I didn't really think that Lisbeth had those kind of feelings for him.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're looking at it as like those feelings just stem from this guy's like a good dude and she hasn't probably been around any good dudes.
Yeah.
So it's just like a natural response to want to get closer to this guy type of thing.
I guess. And it is like, that is kind of the opposite of the dynamic when we first see her there in the conference room when she's sitting, very far apart from the lawyer and the
opposite end of the table.
Yeah, like she picks the farthest seat away, and you're right in the sense that like that proves her growth, like that shows the development of her how she's coped with what's happened to her. But there's ways to do that without it getting sexual. Like there's platonic relationships in movies and TV that are done very well. Like even with Daredevil coming out, I'm thinking of Karen and Matt there. Like that's a completely platonic relationship. Well, two people both care about each other. First season,
more complicated.
It's
because there's
tricky.
history there.
Yeah, but
sexual history.
They move past that pretty quick.
Yeah, but
that's
it's
not
a
like
bit
of
a. I get the comparison, but it is a little different because they're not unknown to each other.
Right.
They're friends, and then
they're close in a professional
romantic
capacity.
Relationship, and then they're friends again.
Is more, I guess, the parallel I'm trying to draw.
Right.
They're close in a professional capacity that doesn't go beyond that.
Yeah. they can respect those boundaries.
Yeah. So that's the protagonist we covered. Let's jump over to the other side. Jump over to the dark side.
The baddies.
The baddies, I guess there's only one real antagonist, but they're all part of the same family, the Vangers.
Yeah, we're led to believe that most of the Vanger family are kind of unsavory individuals.
Yeah.
Collection of people who you don't necessarily want to associate with.
Yeah, they're not the best group.
And they don't necessarily want to associate with you either.
Or each
They're
other.
very isolated out there in the mountains of Sweden.
Yeah. The Spits. Living in the mountains.
Yeah, it's isolating up there. Like, it feels like you're trapped up there watching it.
Yeah.
Like Mikhael and eventually Elizabeth, I guess, when she goes up, are like trapped up there.
Yeah, you're
it's
kind of
stormy
there. There's
weather
nothing else there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the shit's going on around you where cats getting murdered on your doorstep and, you know, you're getting shot at in the bushes.
Yeah.
So there's nowhere to go and your life's on the line. It's got to be, it just, they do a good job of creating that sense of fear even in the viewer.
Mm.
Because you're like, I don't know, at this point in the movie, like, this shit is happening and I don't know who it is.
Yeah.
Because we don't really know. We don't get a good sense of who it could be at that point. We have maybe theories.
No, yeah, because even Henrik doesn't have any idea. He knows it has to be a family member because of the flowers he keeps getting.
Flowers.
Yeah, the pressed flowers for his birthday. So besides it being a family member, he doesn't.
It's too personal of a gift, so he feels it has to be a family member. If it is a family member, and I mean, knowing what we know at the end that it is, but at that point, speculating that it could be, how observant has Henrik been over all these years if it is a family member, and he hasn't, like, you know, tried to individually investigate each one of these members of his family and really dig deep and see, like, what could potentially motivate them to commit some sort of heinous act.
Yeah.
Like, there's got to be something there that he could have
picked up on. Yeah, there's got to be some childhood behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess supposedly not at that point. He needs to involve. But how many years have passed at this point before he involves Mikhael?
40 or something,
I think it was.
Yeah, like 40 or...
A few decades, anyways.
30 or 40, maybe?
So that's a good...
Well, I guess they were teenagers. They must be like 50-ish. So yeah, 40 years.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's plenty of time for Henrik to have, or at least, like, hired someone else over that period of time to do it. I mean, maybe he did and they never found anything. Like, it was a pretty deep dive that Lisbeth and Mikhael still had to do to kind of solve the mystery.
Uh-huh.
I'll give him that. But I don't know how, like, was Henrik really dedicated to that, or was he overcome with grief enough that, like, he could only go so far?
Yeah,
and was
that's a good question. Maybe he just didn't
want
to know. Ultimately, like, maybe he just was too afraid to find out who could have done that.
Could be. I mean, at the point where he started receiving the flowers and he suspected it was a family member, at that point, do you think he was, like, so thrown off? Like,
yeah, it's exactly what I think.
Now that we've gotten sort of like the indirect antagonist out of the way in Henrik, let's talk about the primary antagonist, which is
the actual dickhead.
Martin Vanger. Yeah.
Yeah.
The actual dickhead. Yeah, this guy is a real piece of work. A real asshole.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, dedicated his life to being an asshole.
Yeah,
I mean, more than an asshole. I shouldn't even, like, he's like a deeply evil human being.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the scum of... Yeah, asshole is too, like...
It's
almost like a
giving
nice
him
way
enough credit for how bad of a person he is.
No,
like,
he's a fucking maniac.
He's a deplorable human being. He deserves to be locked up or dead.
Yeah. I guess he is.
At this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a very suspicious person, I felt like, even right off the bat. Like, Not necessarily when we first see him, but I'm recalling that scene when Mikhael goes to his house for dinner.
Yeah,
Moose steak.
Like got to be one of the most, or maybe the most important scene in that whole movie.
I think so. Yeah.
That like the whole, you can see his entire character
in terms of
in that
foreshadowing.
scene. It's the way it's shot. It's just like, yeah, a guy who's had a lot of success in business and is like a proud individual, and yeah, it like very normal characteristics of people, and then you just see it tuned up to 11 at the end. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, now I understand what he was like. One of the
there's
things
something off about this guy.
Yeah, one of the things in that scene that sticks with me is they're drinking the wine, and he finishes off the glass they had, so he goes to get another bottle, and he asks Daniel Craig if he wanted to try something else or if the wine was okay.
Yeah.
And Mikhael just describes the wine as fine. Like, not good or bad, he just says it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And the fucking scowl on
I didn't notice.
Stellan Skarsgård's face, like, horrifying. Looked like Stellan Skarsgård's an intimidating guy already. Like, he has kind of an intimidating look to him.
For sure.
And when he fucking turns it on, and there was like a small shot as he walked back to the kitchen or whatever to get another bottle, that holy fuck, his face was terrifying. And like, I didn't think
showed
anything
his true
of it.
colors there.
Yeah, at the time I was just like, okay, he's a very proud guy. He's very insulted that he didn't, rave about the wine or whatever. But knowing what we know at the end, I'm like, oh, okay, no, he's like an extremely proud. Like, you can't.
Wait, you think he was mad enough about the comment to want to kill him?
No, not about the wine specifically. I just think he was like that pride or whatever, that like need for validation.
Like, he takes it
up
especially
to 11.
Personally.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that just says a lot about his guy. I think he takes all of those very simple things very personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like a very emotionally driven, doesn't have a handle on his emotions, but is a very emotionally driven person.
Yeah, chaotic individual.
Yeah.
For sure. And in terms of other foreshadowing in that scene too, and why I'm agreeing with you that this probably is one of the most important scenes in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
We hear some sort of noise. Sounds like a whistling, or I can't remember exactly what it reminded me of in the scene, but Stellan's character goes and checks on whatever's making this odd noise, says he'll be right back. And I think, knowing what we know at the end, that was the girl locked up in his murder lab there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like, feet away from where Mikhail's sitting at that point.
Yeah, it's like right under his feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy is fucked.
Yeah, I guess.
How does Stellan Skarsgård play all these characters that are fucking depraved individuals? And he's just... is he well adjusted? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I guess we do have to wonder whether he's well adjusted, because he plays some pretty difficult characters. I'm thinking off the bat of Pirates of the Caribbean. Obviously, he's like an undead tied to Davy Jones' ship, tortured soul kind of. And then obviously Good Will Hunting, which we watched too, where he plays Lambo, and he's kind of just a dick in that. Like, he's consumed by intelligence and only wants to use his will for his intelligence. So he's not really the most stand-up guy in that either. And then I just was curious, so I looked through his list on IMDb too, and he's in like The Exorcist and a bunch of shit that further supports the notion that the guy might not be all that well adjusted, because he's definitely expressing some emotion through these character choices.
Because he does the evil shit really well, and it's fucking terrifying.
No, he was a great choice for this kind of character. I mean, like, you just hate the character, but he plays it very well.
Yeah.
And the apple clearly doesn't fall far from the tree, because we find out that his father was involved in this life of serial killing. Yeah,
there was clearly this is like a lineage or something. Like, it goes beyond two generations. It
probably
must be
ancestrally through the ages. Like, someone's got to carry the mantle of being this sadistic killer.
Which is a wonder how they fucking procreate so much. How has this gone on so long?
Well, do you think it's maybe just it started like World War II? Like, because they're
I guess that's
Nazis,
kind of what it alludes
right?
to, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's been... I guess maybe it only has been like 2 generations, 3 max.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, do you think, like, if it started back in World War II, do you think it was for money or fame, or, like, why do you think this was...
No, I think it was pure like bloodlust, like
yeah, just deplorable behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Like your mind is poisoned at that time.
Yeah.
And that was a horrible period of history.
Well, do you
There's
think...
a lot of shitty people that existed at that time.
Yeah.
And I think it just like passed down through the ages, like you said, like that kind of behavior, just like abuse passes down from father to son type of thing. Like it's just learned behavior.
Yeah.
In my eyes, that's how it all trickles out, I guess.
Yeah. Well, how do you think they got so, like, it's obviously not easy to be a serial killer and a criminal and live a normal life. Like, how do you think they got so rich and powerful? Do you think it was as a result of this? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think it was made off of evil doings.
Yeah, okay.
Their empire. So that's why it's like, technically Henrik is not the best guy. Like, we don't have any reason to dislike Henrik necessarily. Like, he's just wants Mikhael to investigate this murder, or potential murder, I guess, disappearance of his niece. But he's not like necessarily a great guy if he's involved in a Nazi empire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, you think he knows the extent.
Like the Vangers are not good people, I guess.
Sure.
We've sussed
that out.
Now with Martin, or what's revealed about Martin, we know is like, okay, these are... we thought they were bad, people. But some of these guys are really bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the riches and the authority and the power and the isolation of where they were, and that all just enabled all the cycle of violence, right? And allowing it to be passed down through the ages. So yeah, it was like an unstoppable force that was just going to continue until someone exterminate the lineage, I guess.
Yeah.
Or leave them to rot in a cell. So he can't. Well, he didn't have kids, right, Martin?
No, as far as I know.
Well, in terms of this being sort of a mystery thriller, what did you think of the mystery bit of it? The sort of twist that they had? Like, does it feel earned, or?
Yeah, well, this is the part of the movie, or the part of the discussion, that I basically just don't get it. Like, I just didn't understand this. I didn't really understand the twist of Martin. I didn't understand where that came from, that Martin was this serial killer. I didn't really... Towards the end of this movie, I just stopped understanding what was going on, I think.
Well, I think it was more of a surprise that Martin was a serial killer. Like, it was supposed to be surprising and shocking and come out of nowhere, maybe. Like, he was good at hiding this secret for many years.
But also very obvious, right? Like, there's people around. Like, how have his family members not caught on to this? Is that seriously just like a hand wave thing?
Yeah, well, like, it goes back to what we were saying about Henrik's inobservance, or him being not aware of what's going on. I haven't seen anything all these years. You're right. There has to be a bit of a... Like,
you're just calling that suspension of disbelief? Or...
I guess you have to.
That's a bit much for me in this kind of story.
I like that you're saying that, because I definitely agree with that. It's a bit hard to believe that, like we were saying, all these years, no one's noticed any. It's a big family, too, and all of them live together in this isolated area.
Yeah, and he's bringing women to his house. Like, they have to get in from somewhere. He's got to commute from somewhere.
Well, do you think they're all in on it, then, in some way or another, or just choose to be ignorant? I don't want to get involved. That's why they don't, because they don't talk to each other either, right? Like, they only talk to specific ones.
Yeah.
So is that part of it? They know, and they don't want to associate with Martin?
No, I don't think they know.
not necessarily the full scope, but they know he's maybe, I mean, there's a reason, I can't remember exactly who associates with who in the family.
Yeah.
But I don't know how many of the family members associate with Martin, for maybe not out of knowing what he's up to, but knowing that there's something maybe unsavory brewing underneath.
Yeah.
They just don't like the cut of his jib.
Yeah.
But you're right.
I guess.
Like, someone's got to have noticed
Something. Anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if, like, the one scene where Mikhail's over there for dinner, we hear something to the effect of someone in distress.
Yeah.
Not that it necessarily sounds that way at the time,
but that can't have been the first time that there's been a sound come out of the basement. Yeah.
Well, in terms of them, I did like how they sort of the twist involving Mikhael and Lisbeth finding out the mystery about Martin in two different ways, but like at simultaneous moments.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very different circumstances that they're putting all the pieces together, and it happens very differently, but it's effectively at the exact same time, and obviously comes together in perfect timing.
And, well, gladly perfect timing, because at the exact same time, but Elizabeth's like at a further distance away from being able to like get involved.
Yeah, Mikhail's figuring it out in person firsthand, and Lisbeth is out putting the pieces together with all those documents. And she finds the nail in the coffin. That's all she needs.
The tension that's built throughout those moments too. That's, I gotta cap off.
Yeah, that was a good score moment. Like, there wasn't a lot of music or like ambient sounds. In the movie as a whole, like, it was generally pretty quiet, but at that moment, it was building, and
you could feel it about to pop.
It was good use of audio and score.
Yeah, no, I did. I thought the twist was well received, despite kind of losing a bit of focus, like I said there at midway through the film when the detective montage was sort of going on. But I did like that, and obviously, again, the twist involving with the flowers, like, we think it's Martin all this time, or not necessarily Martin, but the killer that's been sending the flowers all this time, and in fact, it's been Harriet, who's been alive,
who is Anita,
under the guise of Anita, living in Australia or something. So that, I do like that too, because it's sort of like, oh, okay, I didn't expect her to be alive.
He talked to her, like, he talked to Anita previously, who was actually Harriet. Like, that is a big realization after.
Yeah, like, she was...
you spoke to her face. Like, she's dead. You talked to her person to
not
person.
Realizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so connecting the dots in that way on the Vanger family was a nice touch, for sure. I appreciated. Were you happy with the way the relationship was left between Lisbeth and Mikhael? Like, her trying to give him a token of her, potential romantic feelings for him at the end there, but then she comes upon him and he's with his wife and they're leaving for somewhere, and she just trashes the jacket or whatever.
Oh, yeah, I totally forgot that happened.
So she wanted more at that point, probably, or potentially.
Yeah.
But he wasn't interested in that with her.
Yeah.
So that's got to be a big gutting for her to experience too.
Yeah, but again, it's like we said about their more personal relationship. It just felt out of place anyway. So maybe that, like, I understand that there's an argument to be made that I felt that was out of place in the moment, and then that at the end could kind of tie things together and show that, like, no, she had more serious feelings towards him than we thought. But I think it goes the other way and just makes everything feel more out of place.
Yeah, no, I can see where you're coming from. Again, I'm thinking more like letting myself believe that there was a potential romantic
sure
relationship that could have worked between the two of them. But I am happy that she was able to be vulnerable enough to put herself in the position where she's extending this, representation of her trying to navigate healthier relationships with men.
Yeah.
But him not being able to follow through on that. So it's like, where does that leave her? Is she still confident enough to be able to do that with, find another decent guy, or is she gonna, is that gonna be devastating enough to
bring her back to zero kind of thing? Yeah. It's a good question. I like to think not, I guess. I think she's grown quite a bit in that time. She's got a lot of money, so she can go around and
got a hell of a lot of money.
Find herself, do whatever she wants.
I did like that too, that she was, obviously speaks to her ability as computer whiz.
Yeah.
That she just drains Martin's accounts. Takes it for herself.
Yeah, nobody's the wiser. Or I guess looks like nobody's the wiser, but
for now,
who knows?
It seems like she did it in a way that could be effective. CRA, they always find you.
Yeah. They just smell the cash in your pocket.
But yeah, any final thoughts on the film as a whole, or any characters or burning questions left unanswered?
As much as it is open-ended and, left up for interpretation, I don't really have any questions for, what potentially might have happened after. I mean, I know we just talked about it a little bit, but in the large scheme, yeah, I don't really have any. There was nothing in there that I wish I had a scene that would have, really added a lot to the future of these characters, or to like the perceived future of these characters. But yeah, no, I think it was a pretty open and shut.
Yeah, neatly wrapped
story.
Up story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think both characters grew and experienced an ordeal together, to say the least.
Yeah.
And went their separate ways.
Yeah, I guess that is the only. You wonder if they would ever, like, as characters, if they would ever, cross paths again. But I guess
I'm sure there's
ultimately it doesn't really matter either way. It probably wouldn't really change anything to the story, or wouldn't change their characters much from that.
Do you think it was more of a story, looking back now, do you think it was more of a story about Lisbeth or the Vanger investigation, the Vanger family? It kind of, I got lost maybe in I think was it trying to be both?
I think the title answers your question.
But then it was sort of like maybe the other bit was ham-fisted in, and
I think the other
just sort of something for her to do.
I think it was, because I think the hook or whatever that Daniel Craig gives to her is like, do you want to help me catch a killer of women? Like, that's what gets her in. Yeah,
because it's much more Mikhael's endeavor.
Yeah,
the investigation.
Yeah, but I think him bringing her in, I think that isn't a movie we would see, or that isn't a book that would be written. It's just Mikhael's investigation on the Vangers family.
Well, it could be
what we would see is the larger story of
Sherlock
this other
Holmes
person coming in and being exposed to this investigation, this case, this like insane series of events, killings.
Yeah, I guess it just, it felt like that wasn't her story. So if the movie was about her, just her being kind of a side piece of that investigation, a Robin to Mikhael's Batman, it was just sort of like, okay. Because that first, her relationship with her social worker and her revenge and stuff. And then we just kind of get shifted to her getting involved secondarily with this investigator, not even investigator, journalist.
Investigative journalist, yeah.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. I just wondered if you thought it felt a little, in my eyes, it was maybe a little disjointed, and maybe that's what had me lost in the sauce too, because I think it pivots from, Lisbeth's story to like this detective kind of montage, and then we get kind of some more information and good pacing after this transition period montage. But yeah, those were my kind of final thoughts on it.
Yeah. Well, where does that put you, with all that, where does that put you on our tier list?
Yeah, just recalling, I guess, some of the points we brought up about it feeling a little disjointed and getting lost in the sauce a little bit. I would probably rank it a little bit lower. There were some high points for sure, like we discussed. The twist was great. I thought it was pulled off well. I like that shot, that POV shot of you getting plastic bagged as the viewer, as Mikhael gets plastic bagged in the dungeon there. But it just wasn't quite good enough to put it in the solid category for me. So I think I'd put it in needs some work.
Yeah.
And that could be because of the book too. Like maybe I would have put it higher if I had read the book and had some more context. But as a sole movie viewer, I'd put it in needs some work.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. Like there was a bunch of stuff we mentioned in conversation there that just, I think there was a couple things missing just for clarity's sake and to keep everything on track and just to keep it clear for the viewer that, like you said, maybe the book could have filled in the gaps on, but again, yeah, just as a movie, I think I'm with you and need some work.
Beautiful. We agree.
There it is.
Add it to the list.
Yeah, it's one more down.
More to go. So stay tuned.
Yeah, thanks for listening.